Hello everyone, we are the group setting. Today we will introduce the history of Malayan struggle of independence. This is our group members. My name is Chang Yue. My metric number is 201672. I will introduce my part. Malaysia Independence Day was established to commemorate the successful negotiation between the Prime Minister and the United Kingdom for the independence of Malaya on August 31, 1957. Since the 16th century, Malaya has been invaded by Portugal and the Netherlands. The British invaded in 1786, and by the beginning of the 20th century, Malaya was completely reduced to a British colony. The Japanese occupation of Malaya in 1942 roused the heroic resistance of the local people. After Japanese surrendered, Britain resumed colonial rule in Malaya.
Hello everyone, welcome to my part. Today I want to talk the modern history of Malaysia. My name is Musa and the metric number is 20918. Okay, let's start. How did the modern history of Malaysia development? Someone said it's similar like China. Yes, in Asian country, we both suffered the colonized and the war. So, with the surrender of Japan, the terrible Second World War finally ended. However, the problems that followed did not disappear, and the national independence consciousness of various countries rose to an unprecedented level in the end of World War II. Especially in Asia, the humiliation of being colonized once made the tide of national consciousness surging. Every country is actively exploring the path of independence and the future. So, let us take a look at the change in Malaysia during this time. In 1946, the United Kingdom announced a plan to organize the Federation of Malay, combining the sultanates that originally belonged to the Federation of Malaya and the Malay State, plus Penang and Malacca, to form British Overseas Territory. After independence, but was strongly opposed by Malays. And then, in 1957, from January 18 to February 8, 1956, Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman led a delegation to the United Kingdom to negotiate an agreement. The British government agreed to let the Federation of Malaya be independent on August 31, 1957, and set up Raid Commission of the Constitution of Federation of Malaysia. And in 1963, the Malaysia Agreement or the agreement relating to Malaysia between United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Federation of Malay, North Borneo, Sarawak, and Singapore was the agreement which combined Northern Borneo, Sarawak, and Singapore with the existing state of Federation of Malaya, the resulting union being named Malaysia. And finally, in 1965, the federal government of Malaysia and the government of Singapore reached an agreement on August 7, 1965, which shared the independence of the state of Singapore from the Federation of Malaysia. The British Parliament subsequently passed the decrees in accordance with this agreement, recognizing Singapore as an independent sovereign country and accepting Singapore as one of the Commonwealth governments. And then, finally, in the summary, during the period after the end of World War II. Basically, every country was busy fighting for independence, especially Asia. The independence storm had swept up every corner. Compared with China, what Malaysia and China have in common is that they become independent after going through the period of domestic chaos after the colonial war. The difference is that a large-scale civil war broke out in China, where Malaysia is more of a negotiation. But as countries that have suffered from wars and bullying, both China and Malaysia know that independence and peace are hard-won. They also crushed the current peaceful environment even more, which can be found in the future foreign policy of China and Malaysia. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Fu Weijie. I'm going to talk about the relationship between Malaysia and China during the struggle for independence. Malaysia's good geographical location has also made it colonized and invaded by different countries in the 14th century. Portuguese troops come to Malaya, occupied Malacca, and established the first colony in the east. In the 17th century, the Netherlands defeated the Portuguese ruler and Malaya became a Dutch colony. In the 18th century, Malaya's abundant resources enabled the British East India Company to continue to establish colonies in Malaya and gradually replaced the Dutch dominance, make Malaya and Singapore become British colony. And at the same time, in order to obtain Chinese resources, British began to import large amounts of opium into China. In 1840, a war was launched against China, and Hong Kong became a British colony due to the defeat of China. The British colonization caused serious violations of the sovereignty of Chinese and Malaysia, which forced the people of the two countries to start a struggle against colonization. During World War II, Japan began its military invasion of surrounding countries. In the 14 years from 1931 to 1935, Japan occupied a larger area of China, handled Chinese resources, and killed tens of millions of people. In 1942, Japan defeated the British and occupied Malaya and Singapore. During the 3 years and 8 months of the Japanese occupation, the Japanese army plundered a lot of resources, oppressed the people of all ethnic groups, created ethnic conflicts, exercised economic control, and segregated people's votes. In the history, the aggressor relied on advanced weapons to conquer the land, the people, and violate national sovereignty. During the colonized struggle, Malaysia and China never gave up. During this time, many ambitious men appeared. They both used different methods to resist and fight for independence.
Hello, now it's my part. My name is Chen Yangrong. My metric number is 195482. So for the colonial era, during the colonial era, Malaysia never gave up the struggle for independence. From the colonial era, from the 1511, the Portuguese fleet captured Malacca and established a colony. The Johor dynasty became one of the main forces against the Portuguese. Then is the 1641. the Dutch combined with Johor to capture Malacca and started the Dutch colonial rule. Then is 1824. The British, they have the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824 with the Dutch. Then the Malacca was passed over to the British. Then is the 1942. The Japanese occupied Malaya from 50th of February 1942 to 50th of August 1945, and on that era, the MPAJA, Malaysia People Anti-Japanese Army, fight with the Japanese Army. Then after the 1945, the Japanese surrendered and the British took over Malaya again until the 1947, the independence of Malaysia. Then the struggle for independence. Malaysians have made many attempts in the struggle for independence. It can divide it into two parts. One is the struggle with bloodshed. For example, the MPAJI fights with the Japanese, and the 1641, the Johor dynasty combined with the Dutch to fight with the Portuguese, and on the other hand is the struggle through negotiations. For example, like the Berlin negotiation, 1955. Then the independent influence. When Malaysia became independent, it had very good economic advantages. So for the economic advantages, when Malaya became independent, it is one of the most important producer of three important commodities: rubber, tin, and palm oil in the world, and an important producer of iron ore. These export industries provide the Malaya government with a stable and reliable surplus that can be used to invest in industrial development and infrastructure projects. Then the rapid economic development in 1971, the new economic policy was formally proposed and implemented. In the 1970s, the average annual growth rate of Malaysia's GDP was 7.8% from 1988 to 1990. The growth rates were 9.9%, 8.8% and 9.8%, respectively. After entering the 1990s, the average growth rate from 1991 to 1993 was 8.1%. From this data, we can see that when become independent and the new economic policy, the Malaysia's the economy grows very fast. Then for the conclusion, so in about 446 years from Portuguese and Dutch, Japanese, finally the British, there were many struggles and bloodshed in order to gain independence from the foreign forces. Throughout the era of colonization, many efforts were taken in the earnest to free the country from the foreign powers. The local inhabitants constantly opposite the colonists. Their struggle for Malaysia independence will be remembered forever. Okay, that's all. Thank you.